The planet was a place forgotten by time. It was dark, wild, and dangerous, with thick jungles and towering cliffs that stretched endlessly into the sky. The air was thick with the scent of alien plants, and strange sounds echoed from deep within. The forest. The only light came from distant stars and the faint glow of two moons that hung in the sky like ghosts. Among the shadows, a small figure moved cautiously through the dense undergrowth. She was an alien girl, only a few years old. In her species time, but her eyes showed a fear far older than her age. Her skin was a pale blue, and her eyes glowed softly in the darkness. She had long, silvery hair that tangled as she pushed through the thick plants. She was alone. The girl had been abandoned on this harsh planet by her own kind, left to die in the wilderness. Her people had sent her here with a purpose to be rid of her, but no one had told her why. She didn't know the reason behind the cold decision that had sealed her fate, and she didn't care anymore. All she cared about now was surviving, no matter what it took. The monsters of the planet were not like the ones in stories. They were real, ugly, and fierce. They hunted in packs, their growls and screeches cutting through the night like knives. She had seen them from a distance, their glowing eyes staring through the trees, waiting for the moment they would close in. They were big, covered in rough, thick skin, with sharp claws that could tear through anything. She had seen what they could do to their prey. The girl had no intention of being one of them. Her stomach growled painfully, reminding her of the hunger gnawing at her insides. She was weak from days of searching for food. She had managed to eat a few strange fruits that grew in the jungle, but nothing had filled her hunger. She moved quietly as she could, hoping not to draw the attention of the monsters. She had to find shelter. It was nearly night, and that was when the monsters were most dangerous. As she pushed deeper into the jungle, she suddenly froze. A growl echoed through the trees, sending a shiver down her spine. She felt it, the vibration of footsteps in the ground, heavy and slow. Something was coming. Her heart raced in her chest, and she backed away, eyes wide with terror. She had to hide. Now, the alien girl slipped into a small crevice in the rocks, squeezing her body into the tight space. She could barely breathe as she pressed herself against the cold stone, her eyes wide, listening. The growls grew louder. She could hear them now, the footsteps of the monsters closing in. Her body trembled as she stayed perfectly still, trying not to make a sound. Every part of her screamed for her to run, but she knew it would be useless. The monsters were faster, stronger, and far more deadly. If they found her now, it would be the end. The growls grew louder still, echoing closer and closer. Then, as she thought she couldn't bear the tension any longer, something strange happened. A flash of light. The girl blinked in confusion as a strange figure appeared in the distance. At first she thought it was another monster, but this figure was different. It moved too gracefully, too quickly. She could see the faint outline of a human tall, with a strange device on his arm. He wasn't running from the monsters. He was walking toward them. Her heart skipped a beat. Who was he? What was he doing here? The girl watched, her eyes wide in disbelief, as the human came closer. He seemed to have no fear at all. The monsters who had been closing in on her stopped in their tracks. The human pulled something from his side, something that gleamed. In the dim light, a weapon. He raised it without hesitation, and suddenly the jungle exploded with the sound of gunfire. The monsters shrieked and ran, scattering into the darkness as the human fired at them with deadly precision. One by one, the creatures retreated, but the human did not stop. He didn't turn to look at the girl hiding in the rocks. He kept his focus on the monsters, ensuring they would not return. The girl, trembling with a mix of fear and awe, watched him in silence. This human ... he had saved her. Without even knowing it, he had kept her alive for just a little longer. She didn't know why he had done it. Was he a hero? Or was he just another creature trying to survive like her? But one thing was clear. He was different. As the last of the monsters fled into the jungle, the human lowered his weapon and turned. His eyes scanned the trees, as if searching for something. The girl held her breath, unsure of what to do. Should she trust him, or should she run before he saw her? But it was too late. The human's eyes locked onto hers. For a moment, they stared at each other, neither moving. She felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. There was something in his eyes, something. Kind. He wasn't a monster. He was different. And for the first time since she had been abandoned, she didn't feel so alone. This part sets the stage for an intriguing relationship between the alien girl and the human. It begins with a tense, suspenseful environment and ends with a small glimmer of hope. The girl's survival instincts, the dangerous monsters, and the appearance of the mysterious human all work together to create a sense of curiosity and anticipation. Asterisk. The jungle was quiet now, its usual eerie sounds replaced by an unsettling silence. The growls of the monsters had faded into the distance, and the once foreboding shadows seemed a little less threatening. The girl, still hidden in the crevice of the rocks, dared not move. Her heart pounded in her chest, still beating wildly from the encounter. She knew the danger wasn't over, but for now, the monsters were gone. Through the tangled vines and thick underbrush, she could see the man. He stood tall, unmoving, his sharp eyes scanning the trees. The strange weapon in his hand hung loosely by his side, its metallic surface gleaming under the pale light of the twin moons. He was alone, at least. That was all she could tell from where she crouched. But something about him made her feel strange. His presence was different from anything she had ever known. The creatures on this planet, the monsters, were wild and chaotic, driven by instinct and hunger. But this human, standing in the silence, was controlled, methodical. It wasn't the first time she'd seen a creature survive out here, but it was the first time she had seen one fight back with purpose. She watched him for a long moment, wondering what kind of creature he was. Was he another monster? Could humans even be trusted? But before she could answer her own question, the man began to walk straight toward her hiding spot. The girl's breath caught in her throat. He was coming closer, too close. Panic surged within her, her body frozen in place as she debated whether to run or stay. He had seen her, hadn't he? His eyes had locked onto hers. She wanted to scream, to move, to do something, anything. But fear rooted her to the rocks. The human stopped just a few feet away. He knelt, crouching low, his gaze softening as he looked in her direction. For a long, tense moment, there was nothing but the sound of her shallow breathing. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle, considering the chaos that had just unfolded. The girl flinched at the sound of his voice. It was unexpected, and she hadn't been prepared for it. She had expected a growl or a shout, a voice full of anger, or worse, a command to move, to obey. But this was different. His voice carried no malice. It was calm, even comforting, and it made her feel safe. For a brief second, the girl felt an odd urge to trust him. But trust had been the thing that had failed her before. Her own kind had abandoned her without hesitation. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. He remained still, watching her with those piercing eyes, as if waiting for a sign, waiting for her to speak, to move. But she didn't. She couldn't. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, as if sensing her fear. "I just want to help." The girl narrowed her glowing eyes. She had heard promises like that before, empty promises from creatures who had only brought her pain. How could she know this human was different? How could she know he wasn't like the monsters who had tried to tear her apart, or the people who had cast her aside? She considered running. She could slip away into the dense jungle, disappear into the shadows where no one could find her. But something stopped her. Something about the man's presence made her hesitate. Slowly, ever so slowly, she shifted her position, moving cautiously from the crevice. She had never seen a human before, never met one like this. He wasn't like the monsters who were driven only by hunger. There was something else in him, something she couldn't quite place. He raised his hands, showing them to her as if to prove he wasn't a threat. "It's okay," he repeated, his voice softer now, almost coaxing. Still unsure, the girl stepped out into the open, her feet barely making a sound on the soft ground. She stayed a few feet away from him, her eyes never leaving his. The moonlight caught the silvery strands of her hair, casting an ethereal glow around her. For a moment, they stood there, two creatures from different worlds, silently studying each other. The man's face was rugged, hardened by time and survival, but there was an unmistakable softness in his eyes. It was as though he had seen enough hardship to understand what it meant to be broken, and yet, there was kindness there too. "I'm Ethan," he said after a long pause, as if introducing himself might somehow make this encounter real, something tangible. "I've been stuck here for a while, this planet. It's not easy to survive on." The girl didn't speak. She didn't know what to say. The name Ethan meant nothing to her. She didn't understand what this human was doing on her planet, or why he was speaking to her as if they were equals. But his eyes, those warm, calm eyes, kept drawing her in. There was something about him, something in the way he moved, in the way he spoke, that made her feel less alone. The man shifted slightly, looking around at the dark jungle. "I know it's dangerous out here," he said, more to himself than to her. "I've been fighting off these creatures for days. But we might be able to help each other." The girl's mind raced. Could she trust him? Could she dare to hope for something more than surviving alone on this planet? She had spent so long being abandoned, being left to fend for herself in a world that didn't care. But now, standing here before her, was a human. A human who, for reasons she didn't understand, wanted to help. Ethan didn't move closer. He didn't force her to speak. He simply stood there, waiting, as if giving her the time she needed to decide. For the first time since she had landed on this planet, the girl felt a strange sense of possibility. And for the first time, the thought of surviving alone seemed less important. The air was thick with tension as the girl stood motionless, her eyes fixed on the human who had saved her, Ethan. His name felt strange to her, foreign even, but the more she heard it, the more it began to settle into her mind. She wasn't sure what to make of him. He was an outsider, a creature from a distant world, much like herself. But he wasn't like the others, those who had abandoned her, left her to die on this cold, hostile planet. Ethan wasn't like them. She had never known kindness, not from anyone. But something about the way he stood there, with his weapon lowered and his gaze soft, made her wonder if she could trust him. He didn't pressure her. He didn't push for answers or demand anything from her. He just waited, silent and patient, as if giving her the space she needed to make up her mind. After what felt like an eternity, the girl finally spoke, her voice barely more than a whisper, shaky but determined. "I don't understand. Why did you save me?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of the question. It was a question she had asked herself countless times in the past few days, as she struggled to survive in a world that wanted nothing to do with her. Why did he care? Ethan didn't answer right away. He seemed to think about her words, his eyes narrowing as if searching for the right response. He glanced at the dark jungle around them before focusing back on her. "I don't know," he admitted after a pause, his voice calm but honest. "I've been alone for too long. Out here, it's all about survival. You don't help people unless you have to. But you needed help, and I couldn't just walk away. Not after what I saw." The girl took a step back, still wary. "You don't know me," she said, her voice a little stronger now, though the fear still lingered in her chest. "How do you know I'm not a danger? How do you know I won't hurt you?" Ethan's eyes softened. "I don't, but I know what it's like to be alone. To be stranded in a place that doesn't care about you. I know what it feels like to be abandoned. Her heart skipped a beat. The girl had never met anyone who could understand her. Not like this. Ethan's words cut through the layers of fear and uncertainty that had built up inside her. She had been abandoned by her people, cast away on this alien world without warning or reason. She had fought to survive, using every ounce of strength and cunning she had, but it was never enough. And now, standing here in the moonlight, she wasn't sure if she was ready to trust him, but she didn't want to be alone anymore. "I'm not like you," the girl said quietly, her voice thick with the weight of her own identity. "I wasn't meant to be here. I was sent to destroy this world, to hurt your people." Ethan's face darkened, a flash of disbelief crossing his features. "What do you mean?" he asked, his tone almost incredulous. "I was a weapon," she said, voice barely audible. "I was created to destroy. My people, they didn't care about me. I wasn't even a person to them. I was just an experiment. And when they saw I wasn't what they wanted, they left me here to die." Ethan's expression softened, and for the first time, the girl noticed a flicker of something in his eyes, a mix of sorrow and understanding. That's not fair," he said quietly. "You don't deserve that." "I didn't ask for this," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "I never wanted to be a weapon. I don't even know what I am anymore." Ethan stepped closer, his hand still held out as a gesture of peace. "You're not a weapon. You're a person. And you deserve a chance to choose what you want to be, not what they made you." For a moment, the girl was silent, lost in her thoughts. She had never been given that chance. Not by her people, not by the monsters that roamed the planet. But could she choose? Could she decide who she wanted to be now? The thought terrified her, and yet it felt like the first real possibility she had ever been given. The chance to change, to be something more than the monster her people had tried to turn her into. "I'm not sure how to do that," she said, her voice small, almost fragile. "I've spent so long running, hiding from everything. From them, from the monsters. I don't know who I am without all the fear." Ethan nodded, as though he understood exactly what she meant. "You don't have to figure it all out right now. You've already taken the first step. You survived. And you have a choice now. You can make a new path starting with today." The girl looked up at him, her glowing eyes wide and full of uncertainty. But there was something else there now, too, something new. Hope, tiny and fragile, but real. Ethan's words felt like a lifeline in the vast darkness of the jungle. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make her wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of the fear and loneliness she had known for so long. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly, her shoulders relaxing just a little. "I don't know if I can do this, but I'll try." Ethan smiled, a small warm smile that made something inside her stir. "That's all I can ask for." For the first time since she had arrived on this desolate planet, the girl felt a flicker of something that wasn't fear. It was a beginning. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in her life, she wasn't facing it alone. Together, they would find a way out of this. Together, they would survive. The jungle around them was alive with sounds. Whispers of the wind through the towering trees, the rustle of unseen creatures in the underbrush, and the occasional distant roar of the planet's more ferocious inhabitants. But to the girl, all of it was noise. She couldn't stop thinking about what Ethan had said. "Together, we'll survive." The words lingered in her mind, a quiet promise of something different. They had been traveling for hours now, deeper into the unknown. Ethan led the way, his steps sure and steady, though his eyes constantly scanned the surrounding wilderness. The girl followed a few paces behind him, her bare feet moving silently over the ground. She wasn't as accustomed to this world as he was, but she was learning fast. The creatures here were relentless, and their survival depended on their ability to stay hidden. It was strange, walking alongside someone again. For so long, the girl had been on her own, forced to rely on only herself. But now, with Ethan by her side, everything felt different. She wasn't just surviving anymore. For the first time, she felt like she had a purpose. A reason to keep going. As they pushed forward, the landscape began to change. The dense jungle opened up to a field of tall grass, the wind brushing through the thick stalks. The sky above them was dark, lit only by the faint glow of distant stars and the twin moons that hovered above the horizon. The girl was just starting to feel the weight of exhaustion on her shoulders when Ethan stopped, raising his hand in a silent command. "Stay low," he whispered, his voice barely audible. The girl instinctively crouched, lowering herself into the grass. Her glowing eyes scanned the surroundings, but she could see nothing. Ethan was already moving forward, slow and deliberate, his attention fixed on something in the distance. The girl followed his gaze, and her heart skipped a beat when she saw it. A massive creature emerged from the shadows, a monster, unlike any she had seen before. It was tall, with a body covered in thick spiked armor that shimmered in the low light. Its head was a grotesque mixture of insect and reptile, with glowing red eyes that scanned the area. It sniffed the air, its head swinging from side to side, and the girl's breath caught in her throat. "Stay still," Ethan murmured. "It can't see you if you don't move." The girl held her breath as the creature continued its slow, methodical search. It was terrifying, massive and menacing, with long claws that scraped the earth as it moved. She could feel the ground vibrate beneath her as it walked, each step sending a tremor through the grass. But Ethan didn't move. He didn't flinch. His calmness was unnerving, yet oddly reassuring. She watched him as he slowly drew a small device from his belt, a dart gun. Sleek and quiet. With a quiet click, he raised it and aimed at the creature. The girl's heart raced as he fired the dart, the tiny projectile hitting the creature's side with a faint hiss. The monster roared in pain, but its movements slowed almost instantly. Ethan didn't give it a second thought. He quickly grabbed the girl's arm, pulling her back into the cover of the grass. They crouched low, waiting, as the creature writhed in pain, then stumbled away, moving sluggishly under the effects of the tranquilizer. "That should keep it down for a while," Ethan said softly, breathing a sigh of relief. "But we need to keep moving. There are more of them out here, and they'll be drawn to the sound." The girl nodded, her mind still racing from this close encounter. She had seen creatures like this before, though none quite so terrifying. It was the first time she had truly understood the danger of this planet. And it was the first time she realized that she wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a part of something bigger. The journey continued, the silence between them growing more comfortable as time passed. The girl found herself falling into a rhythm with Ethan, moving in sync as they navigated through the jungle, constantly on alert. The feeling of danger was always present, but there was something about the way Ethan handled it that gave her confidence. He was calm, methodical. He knew what he was doing. By the time the sun began to rise, casting a faint light over the planet's strange landscape, the girl felt more tired than she had ever felt in her life. Every muscle in her body ached, and her feet burned from the long trek. She had long ago stopped asking how much farther they had to go, knowing that there was no answer. Survival didn't work on a schedule. It was just about making it through. Another hour, another minute, another step. But despite her exhaustion, she found herself feeling something else, a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep her going. As they reached a small clearing, Ethan signaled for her to stop. He crouched down, scanning the area carefully before turning to her. "This is it," he said quietly. "We've made it." To the safe zone. The girl looked around. It was a small open area with a few scattered trees and a stream running through it. The ground was soft and covered with grass, and the air smelled fresher here, not as thick with the stench of the jungle. It felt peaceful. Safe? She asked, a hint of disbelief in her voice. Ethan nodded. Safe for now. But we can't get too comfortable. There are still dangers out here. The girl sat down on the soft ground, her legs trembling with fatigue. She had no idea how long they had been traveling, but it didn't matter anymore. For the first time in what felt like forever, she was not alone. She had a companion. She had a purpose. And she had hoped. Ethan sat beside her, pulling out some rations from his pack and handing them to her. Eat. We'll rest for a bit, then keep moving. The girl took the food, staring at it for a moment. She wasn't sure if she was ready to believe in the idea of safe yet, but the way Ethan had said it so calmly, so confidently made her wonder if it was possible. As she ate, she let herself feel something she hadn't allowed in so long, a sense of relief. And maybe, just maybe, it was the first step toward something better. Something she had never thought she deserved, and for the first time, she believed she could survive not just on this planet, but in the world beyond it. The days blended together, each one passing in a haze of travel, silence, and quiet survival. The jungle around them was no longer as intimidating as it once had been. The girl had grown used to its dark corners and hidden dangers, and with Ethan by her side, she found herself more focused on what lay ahead than the shadows lurking behind them. For the first time in what felt like forever, she began to wonder if there could be something more to life than just surviving. But as the days wore on, a gnawing curiosity began to grow within her. Something about the way Ethan spoke, the way he seemed so sure of everything, made her feel like there was something he wasn't telling her. The girl had asked him about his past, about how he ended up on this forsaken planet, but he always deflected the question. He'd change the subject or offer some vague answer about being lost in a crash, but there was a shadow in his eyes whenever he spoke about it, a hesitation that made her wonder if he was hiding more than just his past. She had seen the way he carried himself, the way his eyes would linger on the horizon when they rested. There was a weariness in him, not just from the long journey, but from something deeper. He wasn't just surviving either. Ethan was hiding something, and the girl knew it. And for reasons she didn't fully understand, she felt an urge to learn what it was. It was late one evening when the truth came out. The two of them had set up camp for the night, a small fire flickering in the clearing they had found. The sky above was clouded, the stars hidden behind a thick layer of smoke from the distant volcanoes that had been active for days. The air was heavy, as though the planet itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. The girl sat by the fire, poking at the embers with a stick, while Ethan tended to the perimeter, checking their traps and securing their small camp. As he returned to the fire, she spoke up, her voice quiet but determined. "You've been avoiding the question. I know it's not just the crash. There's something else, isn't there?" Ethan froze. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't even breathe. The girl could see the struggle in his face, the internal battle between telling the truth and keeping the past buried. She didn't press him, though. She simply waited, her eyes steady on his. Finally, Ethan sighed, sitting down across from her, his face etched with the weight of what he was about to share. "You're right," he admitted, his voice low. "It's not just the crash. But that's part of it. I've been hiding something from you because, frankly, I didn't think you'd understand. I didn't think anyone would." The girl leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. She said nothing, only watching him as he continued. "I didn't crash on this planet by accident," he said, his voice tight. "I came here on purpose. I was sent here to find something." The girl blinked, not sure if she had heard him correctly. "Find something? What do you mean?" Ethan rubbed his face, a pained look crossing his features. "I'm not just a survivor. I'm part of a mission. A mission to stop what's coming, and I've been failing. The girl sat in stunned silence. She had assumed Ethan was just like her, a survivor, stranded by accident, struggling to make it through each day, but now she realized there was so much more to him. He wasn't just lost. He was searching for something. And the weight of that search had clearly been weighing on him for a long time. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and determination. You see, this planet, this whole system, it's not as forgotten as we thought. It's a testing ground, an experiment. My people, back on Earth, they've been experimenting with this planet for years. They've been sending people like me to find the key to it all. The girl's mind raced. Your people, they knew about this place? Ethan nodded, his face darkening. They knew more than anyone should. They thought they could control it, harness its power. They sent teams before me, all of them looking for something. But they never came back. I was the last one. I was supposed to find what they were all looking for. The girl's heart raced as she processed his words. What were they looking for? Ethan hesitated, as if he wasn't sure whether to tell her the full truth. But after a long moment, he spoke. They were looking for the source of everything. This planet, its creatures, its landscapes, even the strange anomalies we've encountered, they're all tied to something ancient, something that shouldn't be here. My mission was to find that source and figure out how to stop it before it spread to other worlds, including Earth. The girl's mind was spinning. This planet wasn't just a hostile wasteland, it was a ticking time bomb. And Ethan had been sent here to stop whatever force was behind it all. But why didn't you tell me this sooner? She asked, her voice tinged with confusion. Why keep it a secret? Ethan sighed deeply, rubbing the back of his neck. I wasn't sure you'd want to know. I thought if you knew the truth, it might change things between us. But I can't keep hiding it from you anymore. You're in this now, too. You've been a part of it since the moment you showed up here. The girl's mind was reeling, her heart racing. She had never imagined that her mere survival on this planet was connected to something so much bigger, so much more dangerous. She had been running from monsters, hiding from threats that she didn't fully understand. But now it seemed like the entire planet was one giant ticking bomb, and she was right in the middle of it. Ethan was right. She was part of this now. Whether she liked it or not, her fate was tied to this mission. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was part of something much larger, something that could change the course of everything. For the first time, the girl felt the weight of her existence on this planet in a new way. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about finding answers. It was about stopping something that was far more dangerous than any monster lurking in the jungle, and she would do it. She had to. The air felt heavier now, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Every step they took seemed to reverberate through the ground, an echo of something far larger and more menacing than either of them had anticipated. Ethan's face was grim as he led the girl through the dense jungle, his eyes darting to every shadow, every sound. She followed closely behind, her senses on high alert. The monsters they had evaded over the past few days were nothing compared to what lay ahead. Ethan had said they were getting close to the heart of the danger, the source of the dark energy that had brought her to this planet, the very force that had tied their fates together. They had crossed miles of treacherous land, evaded countless dangers, and fought tooth and nail to survive. But all of it had been leading up to this moment. The final confrontation. They had arrived at an ancient structure deep in the jungle, an imposing stone pyramid that seemed to rise out of the earth itself, covered in strange symbols and half buried in vines and moss. The air around it buzzed with an unnatural energy, thick with the power of whatever secrets it held. The girl could feel it, the pulse of energy thrumming from the structure, sending waves of dread through her body. It was a presence, almost alive in its own way. She instinctively stepped back, her glowing eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. This is it, Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper, his breath steady. "The source is inside. We need to get in fast." The girl nodded, though she didn't fully understand what the source was. All she knew was that Ethan had brought them here to stop it. To stop whatever force was using this planet as a test ground. Her heart raced as they approached the entrance. A dark doorway framed by intricate, ancient carvings. Ethan pulled a small device from his belt and activated it. A faint blue glow illuminating his face as it scanned the entrance. The stone doors shifted, groaning as they slowly opened with a deep rumble, revealing a long corridor that descended into darkness. A cool, damp wind swept past them, carrying with it the scent of decay. The girl felt an eerie chill crawl up her spine, but Ethan didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, motioning for her to follow. They moved in silence, the faint hum of the planet's unnatural energy growing louder as they descended deeper into the bowels of the pyramid. The walls were covered in strange marking symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The girl couldn't make sense of them, but they filled her with a sense of foreboding. Finally, they reached a large chamber at the heart of the pyramid. At the center of the room was a massive glowing crystal suspended in midair. It was surrounded by a swirling dark energy, its light flickering like a dying star. The girl's eyes widened in horror as she realized that the crystal was not just a power source. It was alive, pulsing with a malevolent force. Ethan stepped forward, his eyes locked on the crystal. This is it. This is what they've been after. This is the key to everything. The girl could feel the weight of its power, its dark presence pushing against her, as if it were trying to reach out and take control. But she wasn't just going to stand by and let it happen. She had a choice now, a choice that Ethan had given her. "I'll help," she said, her voice steady, though her heart thundered in her chest. Ethan looked back at her, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and worry. "Are you sure? This is dangerous." "You don't have to. I'm already a part of this," the girl interrupted, her voice firm. "I can't turn away now. We have to stop it." Ethan didn't say anything more. He turned back to the crystal, his eyes hardening with resolve. "Then let's finish this." Without warning, the crystal pulsed, sending a shockwave of dark energy through the room. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and a loud, mechanical sound echoed through the chamber. From the shadows, a group of figures emerged, tall, armored beings with glowing red eyes, their forms indistinct but terrifying. They were not human, nor were they entirely alien. They were something else created by the same dark force that powered the crystal. The girl instinctively stepped back, her heart racing. Ethan raised his weapon, but the figures were fast. They lunged forward with incredible speed, their movements blindingly quick. Ethan fired, but the blast merely knocked one back, and the others closed in, their glowing eyes focused on him. The girl could feel the power of the crystal, stronger now, thrumming in her veins. She stepped forward, unsure of what she was doing, but instinctively knowing it was time to fight back. She raised her hands, and to her surprise, a faint energy like a crackling electricity began to flow from her fingertips. It wasn't like the power she had once been trained to wield, but it was something. It was hers. With a surge of will, she directed the energy toward the creatures, sending a bolt of pure force at one of them. It staggered back, howling in pain as the energy ripped through it. Ethan's eyes widened. "You have power too?" The girl nodded, her body humming with the energy of the planet. She could feel it, the ancient force that had been tied to her all along. "I don't know how, but it's in me, and I'm going to use it." Together, they fought. Ethan's weapon fired with precision, knocking back the dark figures one by one, while the girl's energy crackled and burned, pushing back against the oppressive force that sought to overwhelm them. The battle was fierce, and the odds were stacked against them. But they didn't stop. The crystal pulsed again, a deep, guttural hum vibrating through the chamber. It was getting stronger, feeding off their energy. The girl could feel it, the power that it was drawing from her, but she pushed through the pain. This had to end. With a final combined effort, Ethan and the girl attacked. She unleashed every ounce of energy she could muster, while Ethan fired the last of his weapons. Charged directly at the heart of the crystal. The energy exploded in a brilliant burst of light, blinding them both for a moment. When the light faded, the crystal was gone, shattered into a million fragments. The dark figures collapsed to the ground, their bodies dissolving into nothingness. Girl stood, breathing heavily, her body aching from the energy she had used. She looked around at the destruction they had caused. The room was now silent, empty, and still. It was over. For the first time in what felt like forever, the weight of the planet's darkness had lifted. And in its place was a fragile flickering. Hope. Ethan looked at her, his expression unreadable for a moment before it softened. "We did it," he said quietly. The girl nodded, feeling the weight of their victory and the beginning of something new. They had stopped the darkness. And now for the first time, they could move forward. Together. The air was different now, lighter somehow, as though the very atmosphere of the planet had changed. The ominous pulse of the dark energy that had once filled the jungle had faded, leaving behind a strange but peaceful silence. The battle was over, and the oppressive weight that had hung over them for so long had finally been lifted. The girl stood in the ruins of the pyramid's chamber, the shards of the shattered crystal scattered across the floor like broken fragments of a forgotten dream. Her hands were still trembling, the after-effects of the energy she had wielded coursing through her body. But for the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't afraid. Ethan stood beside her, his face tired but relieved. He wiped sweat from his brow, but his eyes carried a quiet sense of pride. They had done it. They had stopped the force that had threatened to destroy everything. And in doing so, they had saved not only themselves, but the very future of this planet. For a moment, neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say, nothing that could fully capture what they had just accomplished. Words seemed inadequate after everything they had been through, after everything they had lost and fought for. But in the silence, something unspoken passed between them, a bond forged in the fires of survival, in the chaos of battle, and in the shared understanding that they were no longer just two strangers in a desolate world. They were allies. And, perhaps in some way, they had become family. After a long pause, Ethan spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "It's over." "We did it." The girl nodded, her glowing eyes softening. "I didn't think it was possible," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think we could survive. I didn't think I could survive." Ethan looked at her, his gaze warm and understanding. "We're both still here. That means something." She gave him a small smile, a fleeting but genuine expression of gratitude. She had come to this planet broken, abandoned by her own people, cast aside as nothing more than a weapon. But now, after everything they had been through, she felt different. She felt like she had found something, someone to fight for. The journey hadn't been easy. It had been filled with danger, loss, and betrayal. But it had also been filled with moments of hope, of defiance, and of survival. And in the end, it had led her to Ethan, the one person who had shown her that there was more to life than just existing in fear. For the first time, she felt like she had a choice. And the choice wasn't about survival anymore. It was about finding a future. Ethan reached into his pack and pulled out a small map. He unfurled it, showing the girl the markings that led away from the pyramid and deeper into the planet's untouched wilderness. "There's more to this world than we thought. And I don't think we've seen the last of whatever forces were behind all of this. But there's a place, a safe place. I've been working toward it since I got here." The girl looked at the map, her eyes tracing the path he had marked. "And you think we can find it?" Ethan nodded. "I know we can. Together." The girl stared at the map for a long time, her mind turning over the possibilities. The thought of continuing their journey, of facing whatever dangers lay ahead, was both daunting and exciting. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She wasn't alone. And that made all the difference. "I'm with you," she said, her voice firm. "We'll find it, together." Ethan smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him since they had landed on this planet. It was a smile of hope, of possibility, and of something greater than just survival. "Then let's go," he said. They turned toward the entrance of the pyramid, stepping out into the twilight of the jungle. The air was cooler now, the sky painted in shades of purple and orange as the twin moons rose higher into the sky. The world around them felt calmer, as if it had breathed a collective sigh of relief. The monsters, the darkness, the fear, they were behind them now. The girl looked up at the sky, feeling something stir inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of wonder. She had spent so much of her life running from the past, from the darkness that had been thrust upon her. But now, for the first time, she felt like she could face the future. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still unknowns, still threats lingering in the shadows. But now the girl realized she had something that made the future worth fighting for: a companion, a friend, and the possibility of a life beyond fear. As they walked through the jungle, the path ahead unclear but full of potential, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The choices she made now, what she fought for, what she believed in, were her own. She wasn't just a weapon. She wasn't just a victim of her past. She was a survivor. And more than that, she was someone who had the power to shape her own destiny. Ethan glanced at her, his eyes full of understanding. "We'll make it through," he said softly. The girl nodded, her heart steady and sure. "Yes, we will." The future was no longer a frightening unknown. It was a place full of possibilities. And with Ethan by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would carve a new path, a path of hope, of redemption, and of new beginnings. And in that moment, she realized that her story wasn't over. It had only just begun.